Dan Zavadil. We are celebrating the month of Pride on Energy Diagnostics Podcast.
Good to be with you again. We have another great from the 518, Julia Alsarraf, singer, songwriter, experimenter, creative.
Inventor, artist.
Where does it end?
It's boundless. It's beautiful. She is just singing across the universe, and you've got to listen to her music to believe it. It's really tremendous, and the amount of instruments that she plays on this. Yeah, she was just actually up for Songwriter of the Year in the Eddie's Capital District Awards here last month, as well as Alternative Artist of the Year.
Right.
She was nominated for as well, and well chosen. Bravo. This program. If you're interested in music, how to get started, the art of songwriting, the art of expression, the expression being healing, music for healing. You do not want to miss this episode of Energy Diagnostics Podcast with Julia Alsarraf, one of the greats of 518.
All right. We have our guest with us today, Julia Alsarraf, one of the greats from the 518, I think, right, Joy?
Absolute great from the 518, Dan.
She's got a new album out, In Fidelity, and just, you're going to love this. In Fidelity, which it's two words, In Fidelity, just for those of you that are listening and not going to watch this. So In Fidelity is an album of self-discovery that explores questions about what it means to act in faithfulness, not only to a partner, but also to one's self, considering the meaning of fidelity as exactness and seeing clearly. So you had to write some songs about it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It really is an honor and a pleasure to be here with both of you. And when we were chatting earlier and Joy was saying that it reads like a mission statement, that is probably because I applied for a grant to make this album. And so, the great thing about grant writing is that it really forces you to wrap your head around what it is that you're trying to do and what it means for you and what it's going to mean for other people. And so that album was one that I had written during a fairly chaotic time in my life. And the pun there is intentional, of having it be in fidelity, the two words, with as long of a gap as I feel like I can get away with as I say it out loud. But yeah, raising those questions of what does it mean? To be in partnership with another person, but I think about this idea of like working on the relationship with yourself. And are you sort of cheating on yourself if you're not acting in faithfulness to the things, not cheating on yourself, but cheating yourself out of what you want if you are putting on layers and masks in relation with another person?
Lovely. Yeah. Not betray oneself, to consider that. Julia, you are what we consider to be a young master. And we have a couple chuckles. Like I just see, Julia as such a contemporary, and then I have to remember how young you are, because to me you're such an old soul. And I think the proof of that, folks, we really, first of all, want to thank you for being on Energy Diagnostics Podcast. This is our Pride special. So we thank you so much for being here for that. And it means the world to us that you're here. We want the world to hear your music, your exquisite voice, your mastery and production, and the art of songwriting is so present in all the singles that you've dropped. In this brand new album, I am just blown away, and it just washes over me the brilliance of the arc that your story, it's like storytelling, and that it takes, and the way that you build a song is masterful. So anyone who's really interested in the art of songwriting, you really want to check out juliaalsarraf.com. And we're going to dig on your website in a little bit. But also, you're alive and well on Julia Alsarraf bandcamp.com. That's a good go-to place as well for great information. But, here's the thing, the lyrics, the story, it's all there. The musical choices, the progression, the melody. And I have to say, this is just my own opinion, because our brains, again, are always looking for patterns. I'm like, where have I heard a voice like this? I'm taken back to Joni Mitchell on Woodstock, in California, that lilt. Like, you have something in your voice that's so rare. And I really, honestly, the last time I heard that and I admired it so much was in our glorious Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries.
Mm.
You want to hear someone take the arc of the story vocally and fly. You really want to listen to Julia's songs here. Bring us there, Julia. Like, songwriting, how did it all begin for you? Where did it all start?
Oh, I have so many little responses to all the things in that. I'm going to start in a strange spot, which is that one of the songs on the album called Holy has that moment at the end where there's keening. I didn't actually know what that was. And this is something that gets back to the question about songwriting, is that a lot of it for me involves letting go. It's not necessarily about trying to shape something, but more about trying to learn what the shape of something is. And so as I was writing that song, I just started doing that, then looked it up, then found that it's called keening and that it relates to like grieving and death. And there was something really powerful about that for me in that song specifically, because it is around themes of identity and what the cost of coming to terms with certain identities could be in terms of how that changes the way that you relate to yourself, relate to your family, relate to the world. And so I think then to answer your question about how songwriting got started for me, it was more of a decision to start expressing myself, which I know sounds strange, but after a couple of years of therapy now, uh, it's often the case that childhood is a topic that is where a lot of time is spent. And I spent a lot of time being a happy, joyful kid, but not really realizing the ways in which I was closed off, not only from myself, but from other people. And so the first song that I ever wrote was actually a song for a friend called Bad Day. She was having a bad day. It was a very kind of obvious lyric to go to, but that sort of started to open things up for me. And from that point, I had a friend named Owen who we had been in a band together. It was mostly his music. And we started bringing our songs to each other and then performing them and collaborating through college anytime we would be back in town where we grew up. And then it just kept going. It was always the thing that I would go to if I didn't quite know how to feel what I was feeling or how to express what I was feeling or even understand what the experience was that I was having. Music felt like this strange way that I could get around myself and my own blocks. And it could sort of cut through. And I would often find that I'd write songs and then understand what the songs meant, which is an odd experience.
Art as healing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I want to talk about, Dan and I, we, of course, and anyone that's put on a song that moves them or can help them to, release neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin and the feel-good chemicals. We all have memories of songs. And I certainly have memories of being on that rooftop in Mexico at sunset and listening, downloading your songs and just the feel good and that of, wow, this is Julia, look what she's sharing. And I felt like I knew you a little bit more. It was so great, knowing you all these years, but knowing you more through your music. Your music is healing. And I want to tell you that I had this powerful experience. We talked about playlist and, you talk about the order of songs as they're written, but we don't know. We're downloading things. What is the world going to bring us? So here I hear take responsibility rushes. I'm telling you, and then the buildup, and what is that? I mean, is that a primal scream? What's going on there? Then you speak to keening, which is such an ancient thing that is within us, and you gave over to that because the next song was holy after Take Responsibility, and I had chills. It brought tears to my eyes. Just the sheer beauty of your voice, but then, woo! Here's the curveball at the end of the song. Read lyrics, folks. It was just a blow away moment. And then It Hurts came on after that. And I'm like, if I never hear another thing, I am good. I am good. But that's when the tears came, I really felt your intention in this song. So I thank you for sharing that about the keening. And that is probably one of the greatest songs I've ever heard, holy. And of course, I take responsibility. That's an anthem. That is an anthem, my friend. I had to hear that again and again and again. And so I just wanted to say that for me as a listener, there is a very healing energy that comes maybe from your expression, and then hearing it. There's clarity. It's all there. And the song construction, which I know that you really dug too. Dan working in the studio all the time, of course. But I want to thank you for that experience, because it's a classic that I think that everybody needs to hear. And that's what made me wax poetic of where have I ever heard a voice do these things vocally, naturally, just go to. So thank you. Dan, did you want to share anything?
What's the right word? Like you're talking about it just being healing, and it's authentic. It is not formulaic. That you're not doing it for any other reason than just to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's so disarming to hear. And it's like I said to Joy earlier, like it's timeless. Like you could put a song on and be like, when did it come out? Oh, January? No, it could have come out 10 years ago. It's one of those songs you just listen to and you just keep listening. And because you want to hear the story within it. It's like I said, there's not a predictable course to it. It's like we're along that path with you, like kind of wandering through where you're going, like, oh, where's this one going to go? What's the lyric going to bring? What's the crazy experimentation with the instrument going to be in this one? What are you playing this time? Because there's a list of instruments that you played on this last one, right? Vocals, bass, keys, viola, electric violin, baglamis, toy piano, forks, like everything. It's great. It's so, as a noisemaker, like so much stuff happening here, and it's fun because you're just sort of like in the sandbox. Oh, what can I do with this? Let me pick this up. What can I do with this? How is this going to come out? And then the fact that you then do something so profound, and then later on go back and find out, oh, that's actually something but you were just called to do it in the moment. And so we get those moments from you when we listen, and there are not a lot of songwriters doing that. And
let's talk about that for a second. We discussed this a little bit, in that there's no way that anyone could ever hear your songs and say, oh, Julia is this genre. You're this breakout star of, I want to just say, really representing people that are so multi-talented, multi-dimensional. It's like, don't even ask me what genre. This is genreless, because you're going from crunchy electric guitar to as if you're singing in an angelic choir to, and the different instrumentation. There's no way that any of this can be specified. I like that. It's really annoying that they try and do that, right? Has that tell me about that and your journey with.
Yeah, it's
the genre.
I am, yeah, exactly. It is my least favorite drop down in the process of uploading music to streaming platforms is trying to figure out which genre people would associate most strongly with my music. I'm really bad at identifying genres of other music too. And so I think maybe I'm the same way as a listener, as a writer, which is like when I'm hearing the song, I'm hearing the song.
Right.
It's its own distinct identity. And like, sure, there are instruments that are used that correlate more heavily with this genre, or, meters, rhythms, whatever. But I don't know. I think I'm not very studied in that, and sort of not vehemently opposed to it, because I do also think it can be helpful as a quick way for people to kind of, oh, well, this is the sort of thing that I gravitate toward. But I do think that one of the downsides of sort of algorithmically fed playlists and things like that is that there are other things out there that you might not know that are really striking or really meaningful to you, but maybe outside of the genres that one would typically listen to. And it's interesting to think about this in the context of Pride Month too. I don't know, for whatever reason, as you were talking about that, one of the things that it reminded me of is somebody who said to me as a compliment recently, "Well, you're so gay." And I kind of, I appreciated it, but also sort of rubbed against it, because I think there is something about boxes, right? And something about like being taken from one box and put into another box. And I think that genre defining is another thing that we do that just is, it's our human nature of like, what category am I going to put this in? What category am I going to put this person in? This song, this experience. So
That's a great point, actually. Now, I met you were on the precipice of graduation from RPI. And I remember, I'm like, who is this person? It's a fascinating. What? You're just graduating? Because again, you have such a maturity and depth and soulfulness that's beyond, age number. Another thing you can't, put a box around. But I recall that they decided to have an event at RPI at MPAC, which you'll soon be playing at. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But where they brought back their 4, was it, that evening, finest inventors, of which you were one. And I'm wondering if you can tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was, well, I think just from the beginning of what you said, I think like attracts like, right? And so as I was getting ready to graduate and starting to find my people and my places, it was, yeah, such a great moment to meet you. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, because I do feel like that helped me establish like some firm roots with the music community here, and also the music community that I wanted to be a part of, right? Like the musical community that was doing it because you have to do, because you just do it, right? Like where it's just pouring out and doesn't have these sort of like specific commercial goals tied to it. But yeah, so the RPI project it was really interesting. There was an artist named Tarek Atois who was working with folks in the deaf and hard of hearing communities to make music. And so he came in and did a class with one of my professors when I had been a student, Pauline Oliveros, who has since passed away, but was also somebody who really is, I see as a mentor and as a guide. And even since she's passed, my dad passed away a few years ago. And what's striking to me is that I often feel her presence more than his. My dad and I had a little bit of a complicated relationship. And so I don't know if sometimes maybe there's sort of just like a messages being passed kind of thing. And that she was somebody that I had just a really uncomplicated, sweet bond with, and who I always felt like had my back. And so she brought me in to do a project with these folks. And what the instrument I ended up creating was called the sit-thesizer, because I cannot resist a good pun. So it was a synthesizer that was created using just a simple square wave, but the pitch was controlled by conductive paint. And so based on where you were placing your finger on the paint that you could draw, you would basically draw your own instrument. And then the pitch would be higher or lower depending on where you were. But you would be sitting on a subwoofer that was generating the sound that you're creating. So you really feel the music. And they ended up taking that instrument and to a project that they did in Europe about a year after that. And I think a couple of other performances. So that was a joy. And so it's just so fun. And I think encapsulates a lot of how I feel about music in general, which is that not only is it healing, but it also is fun, right? Like I love the idea that we use the verb play when we talk about playing instruments. It should be fun.
Should be fun. Well, that's a great story. And I was just thinking to myself, who is this Marvel who ended up in your big presence? You are one of the greats of 518 and Troy, you know. But where did it all start? Where did you come from?
I grew up in Houston and moved to Troy in order to attend RPI. So I've been here for most of my adult life, minus a couple of blips, where I was back in Houston for a few months and in DC for one dark month. But what was interesting about it, and I think you two probably won't be surprised to hear this just based on sort of the way that you live your lives as well. RPI was the one school that I did not visit that I applied to. And I just remember getting out of the cab and having this feeling that I had not experienced before of just feeling like I was home. And so it's been home ever since. And until I feel called to be somewhere else, it's home.
And boy, are we blessed that you have faked your claim, you have grown roots, and that's moving to hear, Julia. I didn't know that you found your sense of belonging. John O'Donohue, the great spiritual scholar, would say, right? That what is greater than that? The sense of belonging. Like, well, you have really taken root here. And let's just talk about something too that was it was electric that night at the Eddies last month. And to just bear witness, just seeing your name up there in lights, so to speak, right? Songwriter of the year. Right? Alt Indie Artist of the Year. These were the nominations we have. How was that for you? Bring us there. What meaning did that have for you?
It's, it's interesting, award shows and things like that. I think I always have a little bit of ambivalence about them because I think there is something that never feels quite right about like quantifying the value of somebody's expression, that somebody's creative expression. But I do see what the value of it for me is this sense that the community is essentially vouching for the fact that if you go hear this person in concert, which that's ultimately what I want out of this whole experience, is just to have shared experiences with audiences where it can be that flow of energy between performer and audience. And that awards like this are ways for the community to say, this is a person where you can get that experience, where you can have that experience. So it is an honor to be nominated for things like that for that reason.
You put your heart and your soul into this. I remember us speaking about it and talking about how we're really working to the finish line. In Fidelity was released on New Year's Eve, 2025. A few short months later, ladies and gentlemen, she is up for the Songwriter of the Year. This is why Dan and I really want to encourage, compel you to not just listen to Julia's songs, but read the lyrics, listen to the architecture of the song, which is extraordinary. And it reminds me of something I said to you earlier, Julia, that I'll share with viewers and listeners, which is one of the things I've marveled at and just sitting back and watching. I don't have this. This is why I really can appreciate this gift. I watch you effortlessly go from left brain to right brain seamlessly. Whether you're setting up sound for people listening, quietly mixing, seemingly effortlessly, then jumping on stage and going right into performing and playing and just expanding your soul. That's an amazing gift to me, and I just want to say that I really appreciate who you are And I feel like the architecture of your songs also is a representative of that. I would love to hear you talk more about your songwriting and being a songwriter.
The left brain, right brain thing is interesting to me because my dad's last name, Alsarraf, roughly in Arabic translates to like the exchange. It's like, my grandfather was a banker. And my mom's maiden name, don't try to hack into my accounts. My mom's maiden name is, so this idea of like the arts and the sciences and sort of this like literal marriage of those things. And then here we are. But yeah, I've just always loved to tinker. And I remember one toy that I had as a kid was a little keyboard that had numbers and letters, and it made little sounds, and then had a little. And I just remember pressing the 3 over and over and over and over and over again until the sound like stopped being a number and just started being a sound, and then taking it apart and like. I don't know if I was able to put it back together at that age. I think I was probably too young to do that successfully. But just always loving, these places where music and technology overlap, and then also I remember having to write something in a visual arts class that I took in high school, and I was always drawing musicians, and like for me it was always about music, technology, and people, right? Like that's my like trifecta of things that I'm interested in. And if something has at least 2 of those things, I'm usually having a good time. And working with Mike is amazing because he has such a playful attitude toward those things and a creative mind, and also is an incredibly proficient technician. And watching him work Pro Tools is a sight to be seen in and of itself. It's just really great to work with somebody who I feel like I can take creative risks with, try things out. Hey, that's cool. Hey, this didn't quite work. Let's try something else. And not feel like there's any ego involved in that. Like, no, I don't remember whose ideas were whose by the time the album is finished. It doesn't matter. We arrive at a place that serves the song, and are able to talk about the songs in meaningful ways to figure out what sounds are going to serve them best so that the listener can get the experience that I'm hoping to convey as a songwriter. And so, as a long-winded introduction to answering your question about songwriting, I think that there is just the letting go, right? Like letting the song be written, but also patience. I think patience is a really central part of my songwriting process. I have one song called Back to Sea that I started in 2012 and finished in 2018 or 19. I just wrote sort of the intro riff to it and a first verse, and felt that I wasn't ready and that the song wasn't ready to be written, but it was always there in the back of my mind. And then many years and a breakup later, there it was, you know? And so I think that when we think about songwriting as a craft and when it's taught, there is the sort of systemic approach to it of like, you have your theme, you have your intro, you have your supporting arguments, and then you have your conclusion. Like, we're writing a thesis paper, and I'm not trying to say that that's not what songwriting is, but I think that if you are coming from that angle, then you may be doing yourself a disservice to letting the song that wants to be written get written, because rules like that can get in the way sometimes. And I think that's
the genuine flow of creativity that wants to come forth, right?
Yeah. And a lot of the musicians that I play with, actually, here's a funny songwriting. This will be funny for like the songwriting nerds. I have a song called Beautiful Disaster on this album.
This is a great song.
The song is in 6/8, except for one measure that is in 7/8. And that's not on, that just because it's not a fermata. It's not, it's one extra beat at one point in that song. That I didn't even notice until we were recording it. And I'm like, no, it doesn't feel right here. There's something strange. And the engineer, so Mike, he was kind of spooked by it at first, but then as a marker for knowing that this was in fact the right move, he was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice where it was." So, okay, so we did it. And musicians that I play with often will say that, yeah, that these songs are tricky in surprising ways. And I found that with a lot of music that that I like too. And there's this funny, some things sound simple but are actually really complicated to play. Some things sound really complicated but are actually quite easy to play. And some of that, I think sometimes, yeah, those are always just interesting moments to me.
We were talking about Mike Dwyer, right, from the Bunker Recording Studio in the Catskills. So I've
Yeah.
seen you in the studio, and it's pretty great. So were you recording things up here and sending him files? Were you going down there occasionally? How did that work for you?
We do everything in the studio.
Nice.
I do have the capability to record things at home, but one of the things that I really love about the recording process is working with somebody who I feel who's there to do the magic with me. And I know that for me, even though I enjoy doing both sides of it, if I am like it's hard to use both at the same time and to allow myself to let go creatively when I'm also trying to make sure that the mic isn't clipping, and that, and it's harder to objectively feel if that take had kind of the right delivery, or to listen to myself while playing, while recording, while also trying to decide if the part is matching the vibe that I'm trying to go for. So it really is a gift to work with someone who can take some of that responsibility while yeah.
And it helps too to have to physically take yourself to another space, not just like, I'm in my bedroom, I'm just going to go into the living room, or like, it's great to have stuff handy to do a demo at home or whatever you want to do, but to physically take yourself, drive the 90 minutes or whatever it is. I'm somewhere else now, and now you can be transported, and somebody else is at the controls, and you can just let it rip and try stuff and make mistakes, which often turn out to be what you want anyway.
Yeah.
But just to go to a studio where you trust somebody, it should be, you leave the armor outside, and it's just a free space to do whatever and elicit whatever feelings, whatever responses. When you see true artists in the studio that do that, and they have an experience in there, and to have somebody there to be in the sandbox with them that's great.
Yeah. Well, and I do often demo my stuff at home, and I try then not to listen to the demos too much before I go into record, because then you get attached to that specific set of waveforms. But one thing that I also want to highlight about that process, because I've been highlighting how fun it is and we're just like having a great time, is that I am also an artist, and fragile and in a lot of ways. And so for me, there's always this funny arc, and Mike, over the years that we've worked together, which now we've worked together since 2019. So he knows me very well. And there's an arc of, I go into the studio, I'm a little nervous, got to get the jitters out. We start recording, having a great time. I leave on this high of what a magical experience it was. And then it comes time to when the next recording session is, and I think everything is terrible, and why am I even recording these songs, and I don't even know how to play them, and nobody wants to listen to this stuff anyway, and I'm not ready, and I try to reschedule, and Mike is like, well, why don't you just come in and we'll just kind of see where we get, and we'll go from there. If you're not feeling it, then we'll just call it a day. And inevitably I go in and we ride the coaster right back up to the top. And so that's also really nice to have that support, right? To have somebody who can not only be a producer and engineer, but also like
ride the ride.
Yeah.
I was chuckling because it's like you just described the stages of greatness in the creative process. What's the point? I don't know. That was just awesome. Speaking of art, the artwork on the cover of In Fidelity, is that yours?
Yeah. It's there are a lot of layers there, literally, and then also just in what got pulled for that artwork, including a drawing from a journal entry from a long time ago. some symbols that were in program notes on a significant production that relates to the whole story. And there's a lot of like lore and little Easter egg kind of things in the album art. But I also wanted it to be able to stand on its own and for people to not necessarily have to know what that is. But there's sort of little like jokes that I left for myself in the artwork.
You know, you might be hiding some gifts in that, but it's like, oh, you want to go in it. You know, there's something in there, just so you know it's palpable. Whatever.
Good. Well, yeah, and I do think that that's sort of intentional and intended to pair with the music in the sense that that is kind of what it felt like, right? Like that's the visual representation of what it feels like to sort of have all of this stuff swirling around that feels confusing and like there's something in there, but you're not sure what it is. And is there even something in there? Is there something to be found in this, or is it all just mush?
What is the meaning of life? I mean, we're back to the existential question. Right through the rabbit hole of the artwork. And oh, by the way, contained therein on vocals, all songwriting, guitar, badass bass player, keyboards, right? Viola. We also have, what was that, violin? And what could you pronounce that amazing instrument from Greece?
Baglamas. They're like a small bouzouki. So the bouzouki traditionally has 4 doubled strings, so 8 total. And the baglamas has 6, which are 3 doubled strings. And it's used on the song Still Breaking. And that song for me is about kind of the aftermath of my dad's passing and how things emotionally were coming out for me. And so at the end of that song, there's actually sort of a loose quotation of an Arabic song that I grew up with. And I would have loved to have used an oud, which is the instrument that I'm most familiar with from Middle Eastern music, but I didn't have one. And so the next closest thing that I had was this Greek instrument that what we ended up doing was doubling it with an acoustic guitar that was sort of muted in an interesting way to get some of that layered texture of the sound there.
And you've got some exciting events coming up. Just read about one in one of our amazing entertainment papers for the 518. But maybe Dan will go to that for a second if there's anything you want to share about that. You also perform in another group, and you have an exciting ensemble that you're going to be creating that we want to talk about as well. So let's put up some dates. You're going to love Julia's music. We're going to talk a little bit more before we end about songwriting and the business of it.
I think it's this one.
For anybody, there you go. That's it. So we've
That's
got
the one.
First of all, can I ode to the 90s style internet site? I just thought this was great.
Got to get on my gateway computer.
So the fun thing about this is that I am actually a web developer. There's something sort of tongue in cheek about the whole thing, but it has the information that you need, nothing more, nothing less. And I sort of miss that about the internet, right? Like there's so many ads, so many confusing interfaces.
So you've got these, looks really fun. And that's the Pride Prep. That's at MPAC. Talk about coming home, right? Did you want to think about that?
Yeah, that one should be fun. I think they're going to have some crafts and stuff for families who, if you want to make like Pride related, I don't know if swag is quite the right word, but Pride related items. And then we'll be playing music for that. And it's in the cafe. So yeah, big open space. And I'm really excited about that one. And then the band, that'll be with the full band.
That's going to be with your full band. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. We want to hear about who's in that. And it's the Pride Month kickoff party, everyone. So representing, yay. We've got Saturday, July 11th. And I love this name, Paintbrush Charlie and Erie. Tell us about that group.
Yeah, so Paintbrush Charlie is my band. We're a trio right now. And the name is something that came to me in a funny moment, but I wanted something that was sort of lighthearted, and I think that there's something that sounds fun about the name Charlie. And then when I think about music and performing and arranging, one thing that I really wanted to explore was not necessarily just like trying to play the recorded versions of these songs live, right? So I have a song called Won't Feel It that I think the band has played maybe 4 different ways when we perform it live. And I think it's fun to make that live experience just whatever you want it to be for that show, and not necessarily the same every time. And so the paintbrush part of it is this idea of like a palette. And then when we released the latest EP of songs, we called it a palette pack, paletones, and just this sense of like different instruments as different sort of paintbrushes and different textures to be used to make the same song, but sort of a little bit differently each time.
Which you certainly did on In Fidelity, paint those songs, and it reminds me of your invention that you did too.
It's all coming back. Yeah. I've actually never thought of it that way. It's funny how we are just sort of like iterating on the same ideas sometimes in different ways throughout our lives.
We're integrating all that you are. It's pretty amazing to hear. The Tang Teaching Museum in Saratoga Springs on the roof. What?
Yeah, it's a free show. It's a summer series that they run up at the Tang. It used to actually be on the roof of the Tang. There's like a terraced area. Now it's out on the lawn, but I've been to a few of those shows and they're always so much fun. So that's definitely one that I'm most excited about for the summer coming up. And always always just great to play with the band. We did Tulip Fest earlier this month and I just love this band. I can't even, I don't know if they have words in the English language, probably in other languages, to describe the feeling that I have. It's almost this like I'm fangirling over my own band. I just think they're incredible people. They're incredible musicians and just the sweetest. Yeah, I've got Brendan Tompkins on drums right now, who also plays with Zen and the Winterfolk. So he's a well-seasoned 518 drummer, but also a producer for a lot of like R&B artists in the area. And he does that under the moniker Milkshake Godfather, which another great name.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I've got Katie Chow Westfall on bass, who played in a band called the Villaineers and a cover band called Generation Gap prior to joining our band, but also was in like these heavy, like kind of metal adjacent bands in high school. So there's an edge that she brings to some of the songs, especially the newer, like kind of pop punk stuff that I've been really enjoying.
Don't forget, if you're on Julia's website here, there is a picture of her cat as well. So that's the first place I went. I'm sorry, but that's where I go.
And let's talk about how do songwriters get paid? Where would your people go? Because you've got a nice Bandcamp site. I don't know if you want us to take a look at that for a moment.
Yeah, Bandcamp is great because you can set your own price, you can set your own support level, and then the songs are yours for whenever you want to listen to them in the future. I mean, the biggest thing for me is always it's performing, and I know not every artist likes to perform, but I think that for those that do, that is really the best thing that you can do, because it's not just your money that people want. Like they want you to be there and to be a part of the moment, and so. And then also, of course, there's opportunities to sell merch, and bands get, a better cut from that because you've already paid for it up front, CDs or stickers or whatever.
Fantastic. So Cafe Lena, where you debuted the new album, In Fidelity, must have been fantastic. I shouldn't suppose, but I mean, this is the songwriter's haven, the best in the country, right? That didn't suck, huh?
It didn't suck. And it was the day after a pretty major snowstorm. And I was concerned because there was someone who lived almost, I don't know, about halfway to the city who was coming up, and they'd had it worse down there. And so I reached out to her. I was like, hey, so just, kind of like getting a sense of how it's looking down there. And she's like, well, if you're going to do it, I'm going to come. And thankfully she made it safely. I hadn't met her yet too. This is actually the beautiful thing about sharing music with other people. She had heard performance that I had done at the Linda, WAMC's performing venue before they closed it down, and pre-ordered the album, and we exchanged some emails back and forth. She was very sweet and was very excited about the show. And so it was such a joy to meet her too. And I think that's why I say the shows are where are the best way to support, because
listen, bucket list in terms of, what do you long for in terms of your songwriting, your music, your band? Where's your bucket list? Like, where do you want to play?
So the funny thing is, I think people say like Madison Square Garden, whatever, etc. I actually don't I don't want to play those venues. I would love to play a very full, if not sold out show at the Music Hall someday. I think that venue is incredible. I think that space is incredible. Just the Troy Music Hall right here, you know?
Is it the second most perfect audio in the world or something? Like, hey, when you never
Perfect.
try harder.
Right,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Perfect for Julia, who really, you are Troy. I mean, Julia, yes, we're down with that. Did you have music lessons? You seem very self-taught, like you just have a proclivity. Talk about that a little bit before we close out.
Short funny story. When I was very young, my mom tried to put me in piano lessons, but there was a tuba next door. Somebody was learning tuba, and it sounded like a cow to me and scared me. And the teacher thought I was too young because that was scary. So I didn't end up taking piano lessons, but I was in orchestra in middle school. That was my first exposure to learning an instrument and taking lessons. And I loved viola as a first instrument. I could say much more on that, but to answer the question briefly, I then picked up guitar and bass because my friends were in bands and needed players. I did end up taking a couple of lessons as an adult. I took some guitar lessons through the Troy Music Academy with Graham Tishy, who's also just a sweet dude and incredible musician, and ended up taking voice lessons with actually an opera singer who was also doing voice research and sort of was somebody that, even though I wasn't interested in singing opera music, someone who understood the mechanics of the singing voice and was able, even over Zoom, to really draw out a lot of things that I didn't know that my voice could do. And that has made a huge difference over the past few years as well.
There's one where you just lilt up and where's she going to go with this, Dan? I don't know, so did you want to say something, Dan, or ask a question?
I was just going to point out to just a minute back on the Bandcamp thing and buying an album, which is super important because with streaming services, that music can go away anytime and then you don't have it, right? But if you buy it, you now have it in your possession and you can use it. So whether it's an artist or the platform or whatever decides not to have that music out there, as easy as it is to have your playlists on your streaming service, to actually buy the music. Number one, let's support the artists and actually get it. We're not going to start down that road, but anyway, but buy it so you have it, so you can listen to it whenever you want, regardless of what the powers that be decide to do with it. So you have it.
And let's talk about the business of music just for a moment. The hard truth for listeners, viewers, that perhaps you don't consider yourself musical, but you are a music lover. Just know that for major streaming platforms, artists typically get about 9 cents on a dollar. It can take a long time before a songwriter gets a check for royalties on these digitized platforms, such as some of the major ones in this country anyway. And so we really want to encourage people to go to your Bandcamp page, Julia Alsarraf, bandcamp.com, and check out that 90s site. Like, let's get some retro going on here. Really enjoy. And you also have something, a pretty cool ensemble in the works. You want to share about that?
Yeah, so I am starting a new ensemble called the Somewhere Ensemble, with the idea being that, kind of in a silly way, you have to start somewhere. And so the intent is that it is open to folks who may have different levels of familiarity with singing or playing instruments, and probably also will have people who used to play, trumpet in high school but haven't played in a while, or majored in college but then became an accountant or something. And so I don't know, whatever life. Yeah. And just to sort of highlight the joy of playing. And I also have I don't even know, it's a not so secret sort of civic agenda with it, which is that I do believe that having spaces that are designed to have a common goal that people are working toward, that is not a political goal, is something that can, and I hope will, influence how we see each other and talk to each other and have discourse with each other. And so the sort of tagline of the Somewhere Ensemble is community through harmony. And just this sense that we're all playing our part, right? And like, yeah. And so what do we want the collective of that to sound like?
Blow away. you are truly making this world a better place. And you found it. We found it.
Yeah.
Julia, great work. Thank you. It's such an honor to know you. Dan, wrap it up. Bring us on home.
Here's something you've never heard anything like what Julia puts out here. And if you go to a show, you're not going to see anything like I finally got to see one of my favorite artists, Peter Gabriel, a couple of years ago. Right? I know, late to the party, but it was such it was an art experience. It wasn't a musical thing. It was just all. So it just. I see you doing something similar. That it's not just playing music. It's you're going to play a song in a different way. You're going to bring a different artistic theme to it. And just from your sit-thesizer and these different funny things that you do and creating these different instruments and these different experiences, I can see it growing into a thing where you're not going to a concert, you're going to an art experience. But it's live and it's happening, and it's only going to happen one time in that city you're playing, because tomorrow's going to be different. And I just see it as that. But we have these, for now, we'll deal with, and just we'll go buy your CDs and so that we can carry you with us and listen. And it is timeless. Listen, you can put it on and it's going to fit whatever you're doing.
It'll speak to you because you really open up, and it's just a human experience. It's a human condition in your own unique way, and sharing that, and people can relate. And for those that don't find it as easy to express, they get to explore that expression in the listening experience. So I want to thank you. And I also, it's not lost on me that, we met and you stepped right into the vision for global community heart shares. Remember, Dan?
I do.
And help support when we are inviting communities around the world to create healing for the water, for our air, for the earth. And you just kind of step right in, and you've always been there to support music for healing. And I just want to thank you for who you are and for what you bring in the world. And we are so blessed that you joined us today on Energy Diagnostics Podcast. Julia Alsarraf, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Joy and I really appreciate it. Hey, if you're liking our content here, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe on your favorite platform to make sure you, stay up to date with all the latest and greatest we put out here at Energy Diagnostics Podcast.
That's right, Dan. And if you're liking our content, folks, please feel free to share so others may enjoy the benefit of the wisdom our guests are offering.
Thanks so much, and be kind to each other out there.